Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Hey, it's so good to have you on Life Support. What we do in this program is we like to tell stories, and we want to tell those stories because there's trauma involved with many of them, and that's where Jesus shows up, right in the trauma. He redeems lives, and I want you to be encouraged by that today. My guest is Kyle Monroe, the student pastor at Ridgewood Church in Minnetonka, Minnesota, and let's put it right on the table. Kyle's part of our staff, so good to have you here.
Good to be here. Thank you, Paul.
So you've been a student pastor for how long?
24 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about that? And you're still breathing? You're still...
They say it keeps you young, and I don't know if that's true, though.
Do you have like cotton candy under your fingernails? Or
my wife teases me because all my best friends are teenagers, and so...
And you're about ready to go off to Costa Rica on a big
Saturday
mission trip, huh?
We leave Saturday afternoon.
Good for you. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So your journey hasn't been easy, though, and you've had to live a life under the church spotlight, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So let's go back a few years and just kind of tell your story the way you'd like to.
Yeah. So you asked me to tell my story, so I've been thinking about this and what would I say, and I realized as I'm remembering back all of the different moments that God brings you through to where He has you today, and I couldn't escape that pain and difficulty and hardship and hopelessness. Those are not just visitors of my story. That they're embedded in this story of where I am today. So, I was a typical kid. I grew up in the church, and I knew all the right things to say in church, knew all the right Bible verses, all the right stories, and I would say I believed all of it. But there was no life change. There was no born-again moment. And so that's kind of how I grew up and wandered around through my early 20s. And then I got saved in 1996 at a Billy Graham crusade. I heard the gospel clear. God opened my heart, and He saved me. And 1998, then I got married to a high school sweetheart, and we dated for a few years. We were in church at the church I grew up in, and as a young Christian, everything was exciting, new. I was learning a ton, and I felt this draw to the local church. Loved the local church, and I really felt I don't know if it was a calling, but it was just something that drew me that I wanted to serve in the church. Mm-hmm. And so as my wife and I are growing as new Christians, I kept asking my pastor, how can I serve? How can I serve? How can I be around the church and in the church? And he kept telling me, Kyle, I think student ministry. I think you should start a student ministry here at church. And I kept telling him, no, I want to do real church. Mm-hmm. I don't want to play around with kids. I want to know the real church. And this went on for several months. And then I had other godly men and women in my life speak to that. Like, Kyle, I think God is gifting you and calling you to do something in ministry with students, with young people. And I'm a young person at the time as well. I'm in my early 20s. And so finally, in the fall of 2000, we said, okay, yes. We had a baby daughter. She was born in June of that year. So we have this little girl, and we said, okay, let's start a student ministry in our tiny little church in my hometown. And that first Wednesday night, we had 8 students show up. And I can still, this many years later, I can still see that setting, and we didn't do anything special. There was no, heaven didn't open and 8 kids came to the Lord that day. We played some silly games. Mm-hmm. We prayed together. We had a lesson in Matthew. And I remember after that night saying, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. This is what I believe God has called me to do, and I never want to not do this. And so that quickly moved me to go back to school. I had about a year of school under my belt, but I went back to school at Northwestern College to study biblical theology and church ministries, and everything is going great. School is going wonderful. I'm loving it. I've got a wife, a baby daughter. The church youth group went from 8 students to 10 to 12 to very quickly 16, 17 students are meeting regularly. And then comes that first moment in life, looking back, that God completely crushed me. Early 2001, my wife wanted a divorce. She said, I don't want to be married any longer to you. And before I knew it, I had lost everything. Mm-hmm. My wife left. I lost family. I lost time with my daughter. Completely broken. Moving along, I thought I had...
This came out of the blue.
This came out of the blue. And I found myself now in the basement of my parents' house very quickly with nothing. And then even quicker than that, I found myself in a courtroom and a judge ended my marriage. And other than, my wife and daughter dying in a car accident, mm-hmm. I can't think of anything more crushing at the time. I was completely broken. Completely broken. I had to quit school. I couldn't do it anymore. I had to take 3 or 4 different little jobs, and I tried to carry on for several months trying to hold this all together, but inside I was completely devastated. Mm-hmm. I was angry, bitter, hopeless, discouraged, all of those emotions. And many nights on the floor of the church, the why me, God.
Yeah.
I thought I was doing everything you've called me to do. I was serving in the church, all of this, and now it's all gone. And I remember calling the parents of the youth ministry together because I was done. I was going to tell them I can't do this anymore. I felt ashamed. I felt disqualified, mm-hmm. and I felt like I just wanted to crawl in a hole and die. Sure. Life was over, and I recall, when you tell your story, you look back at some of those moments that God intervenes and how things could go a little differently if something else happened. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that I'm here today where I am because of these moments that I'm going to share. I said to these parents, I can't do this. And every single one of them said, nope, we don't agree. This was a church I grew up in. This was a church that my wife and I dated in. This was the church that we got married in.
So they knew you.
They knew us.
Yeah.
They reached
mm-hmm.
out to my ex-wife. They loved her. And it was devastating to the church, mm-hmm. not just to me, to our entire congregation. My failed marriage, it rocked our congregation. It was mm-hmm. very hard.
Yeah.
And they said, no, we feel like God has a calling on your life to shepherd and minister to these students because no one else will, no one else has. So we don't accept that. We'll walk with you through this. They said, here's what we'd like you to do. We'd like you to take some time off to pray, to heal, and then when you're ready to come back, dive in. And so I did that. I took time off. I came back, and now my new normal is I'm a divorced man with a small daughter who I don't get to see very often anymore. My wife is now with another individual. I lost my family on that side. I lost my home, and I threw myself into I'm gonna do the best I can. So I'm kind of maintaining, but inside, broken and hurt and devastated, and that's my new normal for several years now.
Yeah.
And then the next moment comes along that I look back, like God intervening. I'm doing this for 2 years now, divorced. I've got 3 other jobs that I'm trying to do.
Does you make big bucks as a student pastor?
Big bucks in student ministry in a small town in northern Minnesota. I'm rolling. So I'm doing all of this and completely broken inside, but now God brings someone into my life that will change my life. Spoiler alert, she's now my wife now, Juliana, who you know, and
Yeah, you married way up.
I did, absolutely, absolutely. She just happened to need a job for the summer, and she just happened to live in the town where I had just happened to be directing their before and after school daycare in their elementary school. While I'm bagging groceries at night, I'm doing youth ministry, I'm running this before and after school daycare, and so she happens to need a job, and they say, go to Ramsey Elementary and you're going to find Mr. Kyle, that's what they called me, and he'll be your boss for the summer. And it was a Monday morning, and we literally ran into each other coming around the hall. And looking back, God was not going to allow us to miss this moment. We ran into each other, and she looked at me and said, "Are you Mr. Kyle?" I said, "Yes, who are you?" And she goes, "I'm Juliana. I'm here to work in your room with this kid." And we very quickly developed a friendship. I think we were the only two Christians on staff at this, and so that united us right away, our love for Jesus, and we began to tell our stories to one another. She's from Colombia. She was abandoned as a baby and was adopted, and so she's telling her story. I'm telling my story of brokenness and pain, and a friendship developed.
Yeah.
And over the next 6 to 9 months, love developed. And it wasn't something I was looking for. It wasn't something she was looking for. But and that could be a whole nother podcast of that story, because she was just starting college, and her dad had recently died of cancer, and so there was a long dating period before we got married again. But she was in that. She walked with all of that pain that I was experiencing right next to me for many, many years, right next to me and right next to my daughter. And that now was the new normal.
So when you were back at the church asking God, why me?
Yeah.
Did you ever get an answer?
Yeah, I'm about to break some breaking news here.
Yeah.
No, never got an answer. What I got was, I am enough for you, Kyle.
Yeah.
I am enough for you. Trust me, lean into me. And looking back, I really see that the instrument that God used to begin to heal and build up and transform was the local church, was the men and women who they never shamed me.
Right.
They never kept me at a distance. The men and women in that congregation, that body of Christ, they just embraced me and walked through that pain with me. And looking back, that is exactly how God orchestrated to heal me.
Yeah.
To take me through those painful years of, God, I don't understand this. I thought I've done everything right. I love you. I'm serving you. I'm doing this. I'm stepping into a life of ministry, and this happens. Why, God? And no, he never answered that question.
The local church, though, like Christians that say, hey, I'm a believer in Jesus, but I'm not going to go to church. The local church is like, should be your lifeline. It should be your nourishment. It should be everything to you.
I can't imagine having walked through life not having a body of believers around me. Christians who say that are missing. They're missing
a lot.
A huge element of the experience and the joy of the Christian life. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so you meet Juliana.
Yeah.
And you start to build this relationship.
Yeah.
You're both working through some stuff.
Yeah. And now she's in college. I'm up in my hometown doing this ministry, and then that seems to be the new normal. And then another moment comes. My ex-wife moves down from our hometown down to the suburbs here in Minneapolis. And at this time, my daughter is 5 years old and going to start school. And I tried to do the long distance dad thing. And there was a night where, again, broken and crying because I can't see my daughter. I can't really be involved in her life like I want to because she's down here, and I made a decision to leave everything behind and move down to be close to her. October 13th, 2006, I resigned from the church with their blessing. I got out of my lease in my apartment. I quit all the 4 or 5 different jobs I was involved in, and I packed up my car. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I went apartment hunting in Minnetonka,
Yeah.
And I'm from a small town. I grew up in a small town. I rarely have been in the cities. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm leaving my church family, and I quickly find myself in an apartment in Minnetonka, and I took a temp job at a law firm in Minneapolis. So now for 3 months, I'm at this law firm, and I'm answering phones, and I come home each night, and there's just a loneliness and a brokenness that overwhelms me, because again, it was a realization that I'd lost everything again.
Yeah.
I'm no longer serving in the church. I don't have my church body around me. I don't have my family around me. I'm at a law firm in Minneapolis. I mean, what am I doing there? And I remember again thinking, Lord, what are your plans for me? Where is the ministry I felt like you called me to? So I did what I thought I should do. Is I went and applied for part-time youth pastor positions at 3 different churches. And I was perfect for these 3 churches, right? But all 3 churches said, no, you're not our guy. You're not our guy. And I remember feeling that at that moment, I think ministry has left me. I think I'm done.
That's hard to hear.
It was devastating.
Really hard to hear. Yep.
And
I hear that from our congregation quite often. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. Well, and here's the next moment. The law firm job ended, and I needed to get another job. So the temp agency sent me to an insurance company in St. Louis Park to be on their client services team for fixed investments. My area of expertise. I know nothing about finance and fixed investments, but they throw me in. And okay, so I'm here doing this, and I still don't have a home church, and I learned how to do that quickly, and I learned how to do it well, and so they hire me full time. So now I am as far away from where I want to be as possible. I'm working in an insurance company.
Yeah.
I'm living in Minnetonka. I have no church family around me, and again, brokenness, hopelessness, anger, bitterness. Because I thought I did everything I was supposed to do. And,
sure.
And not that I was outwardly blaming God, but there were those moments where...
Questions.
Yeah, why are you doing this, Lord? Why are you allowing this? If I believe in God's sovereignty, which I did and I do and I love, why is this happening to me? And then there was another moment. I met a guy at Allianz where I was working, and we quickly learned that we were both Christians. And we began to have a friendship. Out of all the people that I met there, I met this guy, and we started praying together over lunchtime, and I told him that I was just missing the church. I didn't have a church. And he said, Cross of Glory. You should go to Cross of Glory in Hopkins. I've got some friends there. It's a great church. Go there. And so I went there. And I visited other churches, and you know this. You walk in sometimes, and you just know this isn't where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I walked into Cross of Glory, and it felt like home. I was supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And then get this. The first Sunday I was there, they were saying goodbye to their youth pastor. It was his last day. And naively, the thought popped in my head, I'm going to be the youth pastor here.
Right.
I'm going to be the youth pastor here. And
just like that.
Yeah. I said, who can I talk to?
Right.
I'm your guy.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. But what did happen was this congregation loved me and embraced me, and I got to know people, and they were feeding me with God's word. And when I met with the elders and the board there and the deacons to become a member, they said, tell us your story. And so I'm telling this story of brokenness and divorce and desire to serve in youth ministry, and they accepted me, which was great. I became a member.
Yeah.
They said, please go down and meet Pastor Justin, the intern that they hired to be their new youth pastor. I think you can help him. And so I went down over the next several weeks and met with Pastor Justin, and it turned out that he went to high school or to college with kids I used to babysit. That's how young he was.
Yeah.
And very quickly he had me come in and help him serve in the youth ministry in the senior high. And over the course of the next couple of years, the church hired me almost like a consultant through different things to help with their summer, to help when Justin got married and they gave him a month for his honeymoon. Come on, who does that? And then they hired me to, so here I am now doing ministry again. And then the next moment happened. It was spring of 2013. Juliana and I have gotten married. We're in this life now. We're serving at Cross of Glory. And spring of 2013, a young man was struck by a car and killed right out in front of the church.
Right.
And I was the last person to talk to him. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling him, Andrew, we'll see you next week. And he turned and left. And I turned to go back to the church, and I heard a sound that I'll never forget. And I looked, and it's almost slow motion. I saw his bike, his body, and then the car. Yeah. And I ran out to him and tried to whisper in his ear, and he was already gone. Mm-hmm. And that night, as Pastor Justin and I were the last ones at church, I remember thinking, God, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be a part of this. I can't do youth ministry anymore. Mm-hmm. And this is how I'll wrap up that moment of the story. 5 months later, Pastor Justin moved to a different role, and they hired me full-time to lead their youth ministry. And it was as if God was saying, Kyle, ministering and shepherding God's people, my people, is more than the highlights. Yeah. It's more than the good moments. It's the pain of this as well. Do you want that? Because you're ready to walk away. Yep. If not, I have this for you. And I remember thinking, okay, Lord, let's do this. And I put my name in, and they hired me. And now I'm a full-time youth pastor at Cross of Glory.
That's so cool. We're going to pick it up there because we're going to have you back. Mm-hmm. But real quickly, we've got about 1 minute. What's the